Mr. Polakowski?
Here.
Mr. Porter?
Here.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Here.
Mrs. Smith? Here. Mrs. Blau? Amelia Eckert? Here. Jacob Lewandowski?
For the record, Mrs. Love did notify us that she would not be present.
Okay, we had executive session, and we discussed student expulsion
And personnel matters.
and personnel matters.
And I recommend you call for a motion to suspend the rules to permit the representative from PFM Financial Advisors to address the board first, have the resolution announced, and ask for public comment on it, and then vote on it out of turn, so as to permit the gentleman to be able to return to Harrisburg, hopefully before midnight.
Can I have a motion for what David just, Mr. Botonic just explained?
So be it.
Feistel, second? Second. Mrs. Smith? All right.
All in favor?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Bamber?
Thank you. I certainly appreciate
I'm sorry, Mr. Williard.
Yeah, so I'm the third member of the team that you have not met yet. My name is Zach Williard. As you know, we were recently hired by the district to be your independent financial advisor. So we're here tonight to present the results of the bank loan RFP that we had out on the street for a few weeks after I think the last meeting that Jamie and Chris were here for was on October 22nd. So we'll walk through this handout. It looks like a lot of pages. Does everyone have one? If you don't have one, there's a few, Jim has a few extras, you can pass them around. We're really only going to hit on the first 6 pages, so don't worry, you're not going to have an hour-long presentation here. You have good decisions to make tonight. All right, you did get a number of proposals back from banks to refinance both your series of 2012 bonds and your series of 2013 bonds. So we'll talk about those proposals, and then, we can talk about the path forward once we go through that. Please ask questions, so this is useful for all of you, okay? So if you flip to the first page, we talked a lot about interest rates. I mean, the whole reason you have this opportunity before you is because interest rates recently hit the lowest point in history. Okay, so that was back on August 28th. All right, you can see that's the low there at the bottom of the page. Now, since then, they've crept up, but still at historic lows. Okay, if you go back 6 or 8 months, this opportunity did not exist. So this is a window. It could be here for a while. It may go away quickly. Trying to predict interest rates, as you can see when you look at the top of that chart, is an impossible job. Okay, so we don't ever try to do that. We simply take the information we have in front of us and present it to you. We kind of have some good savings and some good set of facts today, and then you can decide how you'd like to move forward. If you flip to page 2, that's your existing debt summary. The top half is the gross debt service, principal and interest payments. The bottom half is net of the state reimbursement. So as you know, we're talking about columns 2 and 3, which are the 2012s and the 2013s, because we are past their call dates, which means they're able to be refinanced for interest rate savings. All right? And then over on the far right, this will come into play in a little bit. If you look in column 10, that is your existing debt. All right? The one thing that we do have in here is some different options about how to structure the refinancing. And if you look in budget years 22 to 23, you can see you do have a jump in your debt service that's coming up of about $60,000. All right. Now that's likely due to a past refinancing. So what we have here, we'll show you as a way to smooth out that jump in debt service, should you like that option. Okay. All right. So on page 3. Now, what we did was we had a competitive RFP out. We sent it out to about 40 banks across the state, both local and kind of larger statewide and national banks. We got responses back as shown on page 3. The 2 best bids, which we're going to show you live numbers for, were the BB&T bid, number 1 there. They offered you a fixed rate of a 239, okay, so a low fixed rate. You can see the bank fee that they'd be charging of $4,000. They don't have any other conditions. They do have a prepayment penalty of 1% should you choose to prepay this loan in the future if you went that route, okay? And then the second option, which we're going to compare on the next page, was First Commonwealth Bank. All right, now they gave you 3 different options. 2 of the options were tied to you turning over a significant amount of, your reserve accounts, which, as my understanding is that's probably not what you want to do, is to have to tie your money to this loan. All right, so really what we're going to compare is the first option, which was a 245. So it is higher than the BB&T bid. They also do have a higher fee. You can see their fee was about $15,000. The nice thing about their proposal is it's prepayable at any time without penalty. So the difference between these two is there's a fee difference, there's a rate difference, and then you have the callability of it, which you have to take into account. Okay, so the next page is busy. So we're gonna go through kind of the first 2 options slow, and then it's the same spirit as you go through this page. All right. So the 6 options that we're showing you on this page, the first 2 are the BB&T bid, shown with savings structures 2 different ways. One has savings, you get it all up front, okay, so you can do some small projects, and then the second option is where we take the savings more over the life of it to smooth out the debt. Okay, so the blue and the red are the BB&T bid. The green and the purple, it's the same concept. You have upfront savings and then over the life savings. That's the first Commonwealth Bank proposals. Okay, and then on the far right, in the lighter blue and the orange, that is comparing to a bond market based on rates from earlier this week. Okay, so let's start on step 1, option A in the blue. As you scroll down, you can see it's the BB&T loan. It's the upfront savings structure. We left your current payment dates the same as they are now, which is paying principal on April 1st. Okay, this assumes that we would settle the loan in early January. We refund all of the 2012 bonds. So in all these scenarios, we're assuming that the 2012 bonds completely go away. We'll pay them all off. You see down in the middle there, it says callable at any time at 101. That's the 1% penalty. Okay, so 4 years from now, rates are even lower, or you have an abundance of cash and you want to pay off the debt, they will charge a 1% penalty on the amount that you're paying off. Okay? So then we get to the net savings. We have $154,000, so that's net of 2 things. It's net of the state reimbursement that you have to give back to the state when you do a refinancing, and it's net of all the issuance costs. So the $154,000 is the true net savings to the district. All right? And then when you look in column 9, you can see in the blue scenario, we're pushing it all into the 20 budget year, which was one of the scenarios we discussed, and that would allow you to then use that money in the form of a lower debt service payment. You don't get a check in the mail for $150,000. What it means is the payment that you're scheduled to make in April 1st is now going to be $150,000 lower, which will free up money for the district. Okay? So let's just pause there quick and make sure, does everybody understand that option and have any questions on that one? All right, so now skip over to the red. So this is option B. BB&T still. It's the same interest rate, same fees, all of that, except the only difference is when you go down to column 11, instead of seeing that $150,000 up front in the current budget year, what we did was we took the savings at about, somewhere between $30,000 and $36,000 a year, starting in the 23 budget. And what that does in column 12 is it starts to lower that hump that we talked about, where in a few years your debt service goes up. So it's going to shrink that down. So one of the things that we're going to ask you tonight, assuming that, if you want to move forward with one of these, is which structure do you like? Do you like having it up front, or do you like taking the savings over the life? Okay? So any questions about that structured option for BB&T?
Just starting June of '23, instead of getting the $150,000 that we were going to get under the blue, we'll only be getting, at that time, any substantial money. It would be $30,000 roughly. Right.
So the difference really is if you look in column 8. Column 8 is if you do nothing with these refinancings, that's how your debt's going to look, through maturity. So you're budgeting right now about $2,020,000, and then starting in 2023, it's going to jump up to $2,080,000. So the spirit behind the smooth out your debt option is that we're going to lower that budget number So in the future, Jim is gonna show you a budget that's gonna have, less debt service in it for, those future years.
So in '23, we won't have that big jump, and we'll actually have some extra cash.
Yeah,
extra can be used.
the jump will go down, if you look in column 12, it'll go down to the $2,050,000 number instead of $2,080,000. And then on step 2, we showed you the same option where we get that number even a little bit lower. So those are the BB&T bids. So now if you skip to columns 3 and 4, green and purple, it's the same concept, upfront versus level over the life. This is the first Commonwealth proposal. Okay, so it has the little bit higher of an interest rate and it has the higher fee. So when you look down at the bottom in the columns 13 and 15, you can see the savings is lower than BB&T. So you'd say, well, Zach, why would we want to do that? Well, the reason you might consider that is that one's prepayable at any time without penalty. Meaning that if rates are lower in the future or you have cash in the future, you can prepay it without a penalty. So it's, it's a little bit of a decision about, are you really going to come back and refinance this sometime in the next 9 years? I have no idea. It's hard to believe that interest rates would be lower, although people have been saying that for the last 10 years and rates do nothing but go lower. So I'm certainly not going to make that prediction for you, but there is some value to having the loan prepayable without penalty. Does everybody understand that, that thought process? So that's why we have that one in there, because there's a different value to it. I can't put a dollar figure on it, okay? The 101 penalty would be if you prepaid $9 million of it, you'd owe a $90,000 penalty. So you can put a dollar figure on that number. Or if you prepaid half of it, the penalty would be about half of that. All right? And then in the blue and the orange, this is where we jump into going back and doing a public bond offer. Okay? This is what the district has done in the past. Perfectly fine option. As your independent advisor, we like to look at all the options, not just the bond issue, so that's why we did this bank loan RFP. Now, the one thing that I'll caution with on the bond issue is, going back to that interest rate chart, rates move up and down every day. Right now, the big thing is the China trade deal. So every week, there's a new headline about the trade deal's on or the trade deal's off, and that is what moves the market right now. If you look in the very bottom left-hand corner of this page, you see a gray box that says the value of 10 basis points. 10 basis points is 1/10%. So when the market moves 1/10%, this refinancing moves about $55,000. Both ways. When rates go down, savings would go up by $55,000. When rates go up, savings would shrink by $55,000. The point is it is sensitive. Every week right now, rates move probably 10 basis points in one direction or another. It can shift this. The bank loan bids are firm bids. If you decide to move forward with one of those, that rate's not going to change between now and settlement. If we decide to go the bond issue route, we do have probably about 5 to 6 weeks, because we have Thanksgiving in here, of interest rate risk, meaning that we don't know what the interest rate will be, and we can't lock that in until we actually go sell the bonds, which would be, probably 5 to 6 weeks from now. So that's the risk. Now, if we knew that rates would be lower 5 or 6 weeks from now, this would be an easy answer, because we would, we'd do that. So if any of you know the answer to that, just let us know. But that's the, I don't want to call it the gamble, but that's the decision you have to make, on the bond issue side. But you can see, the savings is, a little bit higher on the blue one, a little bit lower on the orange one versus the BB&T bid right now. All right, so I'm going to pause and take a break. The next page looks like this. It's a little smaller. But is there any questions about this page?
No, just real quick, the 3 different options, why are the principles all different, the 3 different ones?
The principles are all different because there's different fees associated with them. So I think the lowest fee, of all of these is the BB&T bid. The FCB one has slightly higher fees, and then, bond issues typically have much higher fees than a bank loan. So that's why, it's a good question. That's why the principal amounts are different.
That was on the previous page, wasn't there fees? What was the one that was $4,000?
That was the BB&T bid. But yeah, that's why it is. The part that really matters at the end of the day is when you net all the, you have the costs and then you have the rates. And then so the net debt service is, what we evaluate. So even though, for example, on the bond issue, you're going to have, 100,000+ more fees, if the interest rates are so much lower that it's going to save you 100,000 more, then you don't necessarily care about paying the extra fees. That's when you put it all into the formula, that's what you look at. Okay, so we're all good on page 4. So then, let's go to the next page. So it's the same kind of summary page we showed you before. This is to refinance the 2013 bonds. Okay, we had 2 bids on this one, different banks, so it's kind of interesting. Signature Bank. The low bid here was the Webster Bank proposal for 2.228 fixed for the life. Okay, so a good bid. You can see the fees over there too. And then on the Webster proposal, that one is prepayable at any time without penalty. So you don't have the same kind of thought process there. If you were to move forward with that one, you don't have to worry about the call feature. So now flip to page 6. The summary page, but just has 4 columns this time. The first 2 are the Webster proposal. The second 2 are the bond issue. Now, the bond issue isn't even a thought right now on this one, okay? Bond rates have moved up. There's a large supply of bonds right now in the market because rates have been so low, and that makes, bond issues have slightly less value. And because of the structure of this one, if you did a bond issue, you'd actually lose money, so we wouldn't do that. We would just monitor it instead. But so when you look in the blue and the red, that's the Webster Bank loan proposal. If you go down to columns 6 and 8, you can see you can get, about $60,000 of savings, net savings on this one. Okay, you can only get about 30 of it up front, and the rest we spread out over those few years, a few $1,000s a year. The red option, where we take it all on the long end, what we did was, you can see it's a few thousand, somewhere between 5 and 10,000. Okay, and then the 2028 maturity, we have the $40,000 number. The reason is then when you look at column 9, again, the spirit behind this option is to smooth out the debt so there's no more spikes. So that's why we put a bulk of the savings in the 28 maturity. All right, so that going forward, that jump in your debt service, if you went through with both of these steps, your jump in debt service would be just shy of, $20,000, just about $20,000. So it does help from a budgeting standpoint going forward. You're not going to get a little bit of money to do some projects around the district right now, but it would just be for future budgeting purposes. Thoughts, questions, comments? So, again, let me just talk about logistics for a second. So, what we'd be doing is if the district wanted to move forward with one or both of these steps in some version of a bank loan, okay, or a bond issue, I think David's going to talk about the time for a potential meeting, all right? But what would happen is you would give us direction tonight, all right? We'd go back and work with the financing team to get documents together. And then somewhere between now and December 9th would be the last day to have a meeting to approve a debt resolution. All right, that would lock in the bank loan interest rates. All right, the bond issue still wouldn't be locked in. We'd still have a few weeks. It would lock in the bank loan rates, and then we would move towards settlement in early January. So those would be the next steps should you choose to move forward with something. Okay? And we would just want to know, as we prepare the documents, which option, whether you're doing, this bank and you're going to do the upfront savings versus the smooth out the debt service. That's the real choice that we would find. So was that helpful? Everybody understand what's in front of you?
Yes.
Okay. And again, the nice part about the bank loans and why we always like to do the bank loans first is because they do provide firm bids. So you can really see the live information. I mean, these are the real numbers. This is what the answer will be if you move forward with one of those. Sometimes we get this, and if rates are so low or the rates are high on the old bonds and the bond issue is saving $500,000 right now, then it does make sense to probably skip the bank loans and kind of take the next 5 weeks to get prepared for the bond issue and do that. This one's a little bit tighter of a scenario. All right, so it is, it is a hard decision. But again, these are good decisions to make. Anytime you can save money, it's a good time.
So total net savings up front's around 215,000.
When you combine the two steps.
Okay, I don't have our previous calculations, but we were hovering somewhere around 400,000.
Correct.
What happened?
Well, rates have just moved. Rates have moved, and the supply has become pretty significant since, we first started to talk about this in late September. And before, quite honestly, we didn't think that the bank loans were going to be as competitive. I mean, I think the numbers we showed you before kind of assumed that the bond issue was probably going to be the right answer. And that just shows exactly why we go through this process, because, things have changed a bit.
That the cost of doing a bank loan, our principal being refunded is the same under all the scenarios, $9,560,000. So the costs that would be financed under the bank loan, under option 2 that gives you the better net present value, am I correct, $123,000 as the estimate? Between the new principal amount and the principal being refinanced.
You're on page 4?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Page 4, which column are we looking at?
Column 2.
Column 2.
Difference between the new principal and the refunded principal.
No, well, so the principal is not usually how you're saving the money, kind of to James's point earlier. It's more about you have the total size of the loan. Now, usually when you do a refinancing loan, it's going to go up because you're bonding for the costs. So if you're refunding $1 million, typically the new loan is going to be higher than $1 million. The point is, kind of like if you're refinancing your home mortgage, the point is, are you getting low enough interest rate so that that's how the savings is generated from the interest savings? Does that make sense, Jim?
You're financing your costs.
Right.
What if you paid those costs out of pocket?
You can do that.
So your net present value would be higher.
It would. So, for example, I forget the exact numbers, but the $45,000 of total all-in costs, you could pay that, and what that would do is it'd save you the $45,000, but it would also save you the incremental interest of that $45,000 over the next, 8 years of the loan. Now, that is an option.
And the estimated cost of doing a bond issue looks like, again, these are just estimates, $325,000. But again, you get better interest rates with the bond issue.
Right.
So that's why your net present value is nearly identical with the bank loan.
Exactly. Yeah. So even though you have those much higher costs, the rates that you're getting,
As I asked earlier before the meeting started, you're assuming the usual 5-year call. If we went with no call, because there's only 9 years left on this debt anyway, if we took the call privilege away, we could probably garner a better interest rate from the borrowers.
Correct.
Because their investment, their bonds would be outstanding the full term. There wouldn't be the threat of a call.
Right. So in return for no call, they would offer you a slightly better interest rate. We would have to go back and calculate what that would be based on the current market. My guess is it's probably around, 5 or 7 basis points. So, it's probably around $30,000 or so. Again, don't quote me on that, but.
So that would throw the net present value of a bond issue better than the bank loan.
It would. Now, that assumes that all things stay equal between now and when we do it, but yes.
And the rates could go down, they could go up. There's no guarantee. Correct. Thank you.
No, that's a very good point, and you do have that option. So the bond issue assumes a standard call in Pennsylvania for a bond issue is 5 years. No shorter than that. Yes, David?
You had explained this to me on the phone, but I don't think you repeated it here, and I wanted to make this clearer. Is it just one of the issues or both of the issues? We're not actually refinancing the entire existing bonds that are out there, but rather you have selected those that would maximize the benefit
Good
of
point.
refinancing.
I forgot to say that.
And I'm
So,
going to ask you to designate those pages, because maybe we should refer to that in the resolution.
sure. So that's a good point. So page 6, go on the second step, what we found out was, based on the interest rates we got back on the Webster Bank proposal, okay? And it's kind of, if you look, this area of the page, it says amount refunded and amount remaining. What we found was if we refinanced all $9 million some odd dollars of this with the Webster proposal, it actually didn't save any money. But if we refunded just the last, I think it was 5 maturities, those had higher interest rates on them. That's what generates the $60,000 or $80,000. So, in this example, in both option A and B, blue and red, we're only refinancing $5.3 million of the total. We'll call it $9 million, because those were the most efficient maturities. Because the goal is not necessarily just to refinance everything. If it doesn't save you money, because the old rates are lower, well, then you can leave that alone. So that's a good point, David. So in that scenario, that in order to generate those savings, we're refinancing about 2/3 of the outstanding bond issue.
So is that only for the 2013?
That's only for the 2013s.
So, and what pages would we reference?
So if we go to page 13 and 14, so it'd be 12, 13, and 14. So if you look on page 12, so it says at the top, series of 13. So columns 1 and 2 show the payment dates and the principal amount. So you can see there's $9.17 million outstanding. Okay, so that's if you do nothing. That's what your debt looks like. Now flip to page 13. The upper left-hand corner shows the series of 13 bonds to be refunded. So here's where we're only refinancing the 24 through 29 maturities, because those interest rates in column 3 generate savings. Okay? And now if you look on page 14, it shows you what's remaining. So it shows you that in columns 1 and 2, you have about $3.8 million remaining, and it's the upfront maturities of 20 through 23.
And those that are remaining are a much lower interest rate.
Those are lower rates, so by taking those lower rates in column 3 and now putting the new Webster rates on it, it's going to hurt you. It's going to cost you money. So there's no reason that we want to do that. Yeah, bond issues are a little different than when you think about mortgages and normal things, because you can kind of piece things together based on what's most efficient. You don't have to just take the whole loan out, because every maturity when you sell a bond issue has a different fixed interest rate on it. So when we go through these analysis, we look at every single maturity and every rate to make sure what we're doing is really the right, the true right answer. So yeah, David, so it would be pages 13 and 14 would show you what is being refinanced and what would remain outstanding.
So, on our resolution, number 2IA, it would be rephrased to say refinance and pay off the series of 2012 GOB and the portions of the 2013 GOB as designated on page 13 of the financial advisor's schedule.
Correct. And so in the debt resolution, which would be before you at the next meeting, these kinds of schedules would be included in the resolution to show everybody exactly what's happening.
Now, back on page 4, the 2012 refinancing, I just want to make something clear. The approximately $62,000 bump in debt service on the 2012 issue between 2022 and 2023.
Column 8.
Right.
Yep.
Right. You're not eliminating that bump. You're splitting it. So under scenario 2 and 6, which is smoothing out, you still have a $31,000 bump between 2022 and 2023, and then at the end of the issue, there's another bump of about the same amount, $31,000 between 2027 and 2028. The same thing happens under the smooth out scenario on column 6 with the bond issue. These bumps are split, same way.
Correct. Yep. And then if you would move forward with the second step, everything gets whittled down, from page 4 a little bit lower. If you would go with this, for example, if you pick the smooth out option for both scenarios, you'd wind up with the lowest, but you still have that, I think it was $20,000 on page 6 bump. So you get it from $60,000 down to $20,000 a year.
So to sort of rephrase this slightly differently, I'm not advocating for it, but just or against it, but the reason for bringing up the First Commonwealth proposal of 2.45% instead of the BB&T 2.39, even though it has a higher bank fee of $15,000 versus $14,000, is that it can be paid off at any time. But paying off is sort of a misnomer because it's more likely that it would be refinanced. And the board at that time would not have to pay the 1%, we're going to call it a penalty or extra fee for the privilege of giving them their money back early.
Correct.
Okay. So depending upon at what point that might happen, obviously, if it happens sooner rather than later, there's more potential for savings. And if the rates go back down again at that sooner level, you'd be comparing all those numbers with the slightly higher interest rate, the amount of time that that higher interest rate was paid, and the fact that you're not having to pay the 1% penalty.
Yep, that's
So stated
spot on.
differently one more time would be, if you think that either a recession or some other large economic event, you know, China trade either way, depending on how that works out, or something else, would cause interest rates to go back down again, there's a point at which you could calculate and say, okay, we're starting to save money, you could theoretically refinance again.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, if you go back to page 1, you know, you can kind of see what, you know, what you'd need to happen. Right, so the top half goes back to 1982, then the bottom half is the closer snapshot. You know, and if you look in the bottom half, rates just keep, you know, the last couple of months just keep bouncing around. And, you know, if you look at the top half, you can kind of see a more of a, you know, long-term picture. But yes, that's, you know, you'd need rates to be, that's good.
Can we chuckle at the gall of First Commonwealth Bank that for the privilege of 10 basis points, they want to hold $750,000 interest-free for the life of the loan?
That's not funny. That's not funny.
That's why we didn't put that one on this page. Or you can give them more money, $1.5 million. I
Would
think.
be embarrassed if I was a bank official to put through a proposal like that. Really. I'm sorry.
So again, I know there's a lot on this page, and that was a whole long presentation. Just, you know, remember, these are good decisions. Let's not lose, you know, sight of that. You're saving money here. Any other thoughts or questions I could help with?
When Dave said these, you know, rates go up and down, looking at that chart on number 1, it almost seems like you almost have to hit the lottery to hit it at the right time to get those really low rates. It seems to be a much higher rate than even now what we'll be getting.
I mean,
The way it seems to be going.
Yeah, it does look, when you look at this chart, I mean, that's the tough part. It does look like you have to make a new, you know, go back to the historic low of all time, probably to get a crack at refinancing this again. That doesn't mean it won't happen. We've made new lows a couple years in a, you know, going back to 2012. But yeah, you have to get lucky. I think it's more lucky. Now, if rates go too much lower than all this on here, you know, we'll have bigger problems probably to worry about than trying to squeeze another 50,000 out of this. But I mean, there is something to, you know, having the option to refinance pay off or restructure your debt at any time. I mean, that was always useful. Again, this doesn't preclude you from restructuring 5 years from now, but you would have to pay. You'd have to pay, 1% of whatever we're restructuring. So is that extra savings worth it? I guess that's the question. An extra 30 or so thousand.
Well, I think are you, the board has to make a decision,
I'm disappointed.
in item 2-1A, as to whether you want to refinance both the 2012 and the 2013. Then the next decision, or portions of the 2013, as I just described. Then the next decision in item number 2 is to pick B or C. Do you want it up front in the form of
Cash in hand.
yeah, it would be the lower initial payment. You're not actually getting the cash paid to you. That's why I said lower initial payment, but it means upfront. So upfront is the key word for B. And then in C, if you want to decrease and level off or smooth off, whatever word you want to use, maybe level off is too precise, maybe it should be smooth out. Debt service over the remaining lives, you would be going with that one. Then, on item 3, you could utilize bank loan or loans for both. That's D. E, you could issue bonds, which I think seems to be out of the picture. And F is if you wanted to split it and do one bank loan and one bond issue. Now, I think what wasn't clear to me before, but I need you to comment on, do they not also need to designate which one of the bank loans they want? Because now they have that option between First Commonwealth and BB&T.
Right. So I guess just a bigger picture here. The reason we would want to know all this is if you want to move forward, there's a lot of paperwork that David and your note counsel have to prepare. Then there's a legal advertisement. It has to be in the paper a number of days before the meeting. So in order to kind of get all of that legwork done, we would like to know how you would like to proceed tonight so that Cliff Pastel and David, have plenty of time to get all this in order. But yes, we would want to know which, if we're going forward with a bank loan or a bond, which bank we want to pick and which savings structure.
But if we go with First Commonwealth, they do want to hold that money.
Yeah, so if we go with First Commonwealth, the option that we showed you here, that interest rate assumes you give them 0. So you're just doing the loan with them. If we, if
They
you
want to hold how much money?
if you wanted to do one of the options where you give them, for example, if you give them $1.2 million, they're going to give you an interest rate that's, lower than what we showed you here.
So basically, they want about half of our budget surplus.
They want control of that, and that would be under control until the life of the loan. Again, that's why we didn't put that on here. Typically, we try not to tie loans to cash. It just can make problems for future boards. And I mean, maybe if they would have given you an interest rate of 1, you might consider it.
So for the bank loans for 2012, the choice is whether to go with BB&T, which only has one quote at the 2.39%, is prepayable at 101%. Or First Commonwealth, the higher interest rate of 2.45%, and callable at any time without penalty, but with a higher bank fee. And then for the 2013, the portions that have been designated on that page, with Webster Bank at the 2.28%, unless there would be some reason to, well, it's the same problem. Yeah, the lower rate there from Webster, then the problem with them is they want to go with a variable rate at some point.
Yeah, and we did run those options, and those, you know, expose the district to future rate risk of rates going higher after 5 years. And then what it did is we always assumed the maximum cap rate, which they offered at a 5.25 to be conservative, and that, you know, voids any savings that you'd have by having a potential rate reset 5 or 7 years from now that high.
And 5 years doesn't get us the complete payoff.
No.
And
But
then we
yeah,
have
those weren't really.
I'm sorry. And then you also need to pick a night for this to happen. And the second, the organization meeting would be too soon.
About the ninth.
The 5th and the 9th. The 9th is the latest you could go. The 5th is a Thursday, the 9th is a Monday.
I think the ninth.
And discussed last week and also in my memo is the fact that you could also do on the 9th a filling of the board vacancy and potentially have that person available if they were sworn in to also vote. Theoretically, you could also do that on the 5th, but the problem with that was pushing back the time to get all the paperwork done for both the board vacancy aspect primarily and to some extent even this. Sort of jumped ahead. These are so interrelated that it's hard not to talk about one without talking about the other.
Right.
The bank loan for the 2013 issue isn't for the whole 9.17 million that's outstanding. It's only for 5.3 outstanding. And that's the principal that's outstanding starting in April of 2024 to the end, 2029. You still have to pay interest every year until you start making principal payments.
Correct. Right. And that's all, I mean, that's factored into these numbers, but yeah, that's accurate. So you'd still have you'd still have the first couple years of your 2013 bonds outstanding, and then you'd have this new Webster loan, which would kind of be after that.
I'm kind of puzzled why they have a rate of 2.228 for the 5.3 million, refinancing some of the 2013 bonds, and then regarding the 2012 bonds, 2.654 for the life of that loan, the whole amount. I'm just puzzled by that. Is there any logic to that?
We don't try to figure out the bank logic. I mean, that's, you know, for example, if you go back to the first summary page, I mean, look how different the banks viewed the market. BB&T was at 239 for the same exact loan. And then if you look down at the bottom, Univest and Dollar Bank were at 3%, almost at 3%. I mean, that's a difference of...
BB&T, that 239, is that for the whole piece?
It is,
What if we got 239 for half of the 12 issue and 228 with Webster for the other half? Split the two banks.
Well, we didn't bid it that way.
Can't do that.
Yeah,
I'm just curious.
yeah.
Thank you.
But yeah, I mean, when you look how different all these banks view the market on the same day, this is why you bid it out competitively.
To be a little bit clearer, the reason why the 9th is a better night to accomplish both filling the board vacancy and doing the debt resolution is that if you go with the 5th, any person interested in being a nominee has to file all their paperwork by Monday, November 25th, which makes a kind of unbelievably tight response time because you probably won't even get it advertised until Friday or Saturday. and leave very little reaction time. You don't pick up a whole lot more, but you do pick up that Tuesday and half a Wednesday if you go with the 9th. The vacation schedule really made this more difficult. The other thing you could do to mitigate that would be to, if you went with the 9th, you could conceivably have someone, I don't know if anybody's available, Mr. Masha, for keeping the offices open on Friday, Black Friday, November 28th, just to wait and see if anybody submits or mails in paperwork to be a candidate. I'm sorry, what day is it, Friday? 29th. That's really worth doing or not? Mr. Mash is frowning.
It'll cost us money to do that.
It would. I guess nobody will do it for free.
Hope.
You want to take public comment first or make a motion? Well, if you make the motion first,
Then
then
we can have comment.
the public knows specifically what the plan is. Otherwise, you might end up doing the public comment twice. Well, no, I'm actually suggesting the motion first.
We ready to do that? Is there any more discussion? I have a motion for the resolution, and which way we want to go with this? Carson, second. Mrs. Smith?
Okay, so you have to designate
Yeah.
under 2I, it's to refinance and pay off series of 2012 GOB and portions of the 2013 GOB as designated on page 13 of the financial advisor schedule. And then for Roman numeral 2, Mr. Carson, are you proposing to take the savings up front or to choose option C and decrease and smooth off the debt service?
I think the option 2 is smooth off the debt service.
So that's C. And circle C. And going to the next page, is it to utilize bank loans for both? D? It's on the next page of my resolution. Which would mean, I believe, for 2012, you have to decide whether to go with BB&T at the 2.39% with the 1% penalty to pay off early, or First Commonwealth at the higher rate of 2.45%, but callable without penalty. And then the 2013, the only logical choice is the Webster Bank at 2.28. I assume that issuing bond is off the table for both. I'm putting words in your mouth on that issue, but do you agree?
Yes.
So, is your proposal to go with the BB&T or the First Commonwealth for the 2012?
Bank loan for 2012
Yes.
instead of a bond issue.
You could go with a bond issue. The reason, and
Are
what,
we leaving either one open right now? Or-
yes,
Oh, okay. So we're-
but somebody has to verbalize that. So, if you utilize bank loans for both, I've just outlined that. If you want to go with a bond issue for the 2012, that would be going to item F. utilize a bank loan for the 2013 GOB and issue bonds for the 2012. There's another possibility. Sorry,
So,
you got too many options.
so it's take the risk that rates may go up, so go for bond issues. Or hope for bond interest rates to go down, which you get a better savings, and possibly a savings with taking the call feature on the bond issue.
How many weeks until we can do a bond issue?
That's the problem. That's the delay factor. Locking your
How many,
bank loan.
how many weeks did you say?
5 to 6.
Whoa.
Right now, in order to get a credit rating, it takes, about 3.5 weeks. That's the longest part of this process.
We need that with a bank loan.
No, with a bank loan, we don't need a credit
We
rating.
avoid that fee.
Yeah, so that's, $16,000 savings times 2 on this.
Did you interview with the rating company, Jim?
Well, not yet, no.
Not yet.
Because that process hasn't started yet.
And once you do that, you incur the fee, so we didn't want to start that.
Would that be Moody's?
I'm sorry?
Would that be Moody's?
Yes, I think your last rating was with Moody's. It's either
And-
S&P or Moody's, I have to go back and look.
You know what, I'm gonna say Moody's, but don't hold me to that.
Yeah.
It's been 5 years.
Right, it's been a few years.
The only thing I'm worried about, and I bring it up, is we're not in the financial shape that this school district used to be. So I don't know where our rating will end up, which will hurt us. I'm just throwing it out there for thought.
But we assumed the credit rating stayed the same for the analysis, so, your point taken, I don't know the financials then versus now,
Well,
but if for
your
some
fund
reason,
balance is probably in half.
okay, so if for some reason a downward action was taken, that would impact the savings.
Zach and I addressed that with banks when they talked and looked over our finances. We addressed why the cash had declined
Right,
in 5 years from 8 million to 4 million.
correct.
And the factors that contributed to that.
Yeah, well, you gave what they said was the most thorough answer they ever got, which was helpful because the banks weren't going to bid until we got all that. So Jim did a good job.
Yeah, I did an analysis, starting with June 30th, 2015, we had a cash in the general fund of $8,344,941. We ended June 30th, 2019 with $4,223,330. So over that 5-year time span, 4-year time span, I'm sorry, right? We had lost $4,121,611, about 49% of that. However, then you have to dig into the history of what had occurred. As we all know that Peaser's retirement payments over that same time period went from a district share, which was 12.92%, to the 18-19 share of 16.715%, a 29% increase in retirement costs. Okay. 2 of those years in that time period, we did not have a tax increase. Tax increase is a way to generate new sustaining revenue. So we did not have a tax increase in 2015, nor did we have one in 2017. Also during that time period, the school board, prior to my arrival, had taken money out of unallocated, unassigned fund balance and put it into committed fund balance for an old ERIP program. So during that same time period, we put out $1,266,431 in cash for those liabilities that were on the books, those early retirement incentive payments. In July of 2015, we put out $508,275. July of 2016, $292,500. July of 2017, $231,656. In July of 2018, $234,000. So that's a significant drain in cash. Also, in 2015, we used some of our assigned fund balance, $118,548 for some small capital improvement projects. And that was a discussion we had in our meetings that we're going to use assigned fund balance for those purposes. Okay. During the 15-16 school year, we spent out of assigned fund balance for, again, for some small capital improvement projects, $213,978. And also from assigned fund balance, $206,000 went for a commitment in new technology, and I think that was the Chromebook program. So in that fiscal year, out of assigned fund balance, $419,978. During the 16-17 school year, we had small capital improvement projects, again, small projects, and we made a down payment on that guaranteed energy savings project with Johnson Controls. So those two items, small capital projects, the down payment on the guaranteed energy savings project was $403,333, and from assigned fund balance that same year, we made a payment of tax appeal refund, $209,785. So in that fiscal year, we put out of assigned fund balance of $613,118. In the 17-18 fiscal year, we had to finish our payment on the guaranteed energy savings project, $943,318. So over that 4+ years, we took out of fund balances $3,361,393. So that was not operational spending, that was specific spending. So, in other words, our real drain in cash due to ongoing operations, namely salaries and benefits, PSERS, was $716,218, roughly $190,000 a year from operations. So, and that was the explanation that I had given to PFM to give to that bank analyst. Then they wanted to know what measures have we done to arrest the decrease in cash. Well, we had a tax increase for the 18-19 fiscal year, the Act 1 tax increase, and we made over $1 million in expenditure cuts. And then for this current year, we did the Act 1 increase, plus we took that special education exception tax increase, plus we combined with more expenditure cuts. And consequently, last year for the 18-19 fiscal year, we experienced our first actual budget surplus where revenues were actually greater than expenditures by about $457,000. And this year we passed the balanced budget, but I would anticipate another surplus year. We hold the line, we don't spend. Revenues come in as forecasted. So those were the answers that I gave to PFM to pass on to the credit analysts for the banks. So
I just want to make one more point, because you had indicated that we could make a savings by moving back the payment date from April 1st to March 1st of
they did make that in the study.
$14,000, but if the board does that, then does that mean that the payment at the other part of the year is going to be September, or is it October? Does it have to be 6 months, or is this just one payment a year? I'm confused on that.
So just to clarify, so the payments that are in here are the same as you pay now, right, April 1. There's a footnote at the bottom.
October 1.
I'm sorry?
April 1 and October 1.
Right, but the principal payments are April 1,
Okay.
I believe. Yes. Okay. So we didn't change any of that. So on the bottom of page 4, there's a footnote that said, should the district accelerate, so you're actually pushing, if you push the payment dates up 1 month, so if you go from an April 1 payment to a March 1 payment, so it's kind of like paying your credit card off a month early, you know, each month you do that, savings increases approximately $14,000, okay? So you do have the option to, on the new loan, accelerate the payment dates. Now, the only thing you don't want to have happen is have any type of cash flow problem.
But
Okay,
that means having all our money in, well, I shouldn't say it that way, but I remember having to do tax anticipation notes for the district a long time ago because of needing money in the late summer, early fall. And this would cut another 30 days off of tax collections to make that September 1st payment rather than an October 1st payment.
Right. So we wouldn't recommend, you know, the most you can move it up is 6 months. We wouldn't recommend doing that. But if you wanted to move this up a month or so, you know, it can generate a little additional savings.
being risk
But the
averse.
point I'm making is, if you move it up to March, then the fall payment, does it have to be 6 months later?
Yeah, so the fall payment would then be September 1.
September one, which
Correct.
is what I'm trying to point out to you, could be a cash flow from.
It's a possibility. Being a risk adverse person, I would prefer locking in the rate, since the banks have guaranteed rate B, and T. I think the possibility of paying off a bond issue early, if you think you might do a refinancing 4 years down the road, again, you only have 9 years left on the loan. Your 1% penalty would be on what is left, not on the whole amount.
Good point.
So if you had $4 million left, it would be a $40,000, 1% penalty. But I think the chances of coming up with that refinance, well, I guess you shouldn't say that. Rates could always go lower. Yeah.
Good.
So again, wait and see what happens for the next 5 weeks to run out doing a bond issue, or lock in your rate now that the bank is giving you. Gamble or not
Okay,
gamble?
right.
I'm not a gambler.
I'm not a gambler either.
I don't gamble.
I don't know how to word it.
We got up to item 3, somebody wanna, do you want me to restate it?
Yes, could
You
you?
need to write it down.
Okay. For item 3, item D, utilize bank loan for both 2012 and 2013. For 2012, you want to pick BP&T at the lower interest rate of 2.39%, but having the 1% penalty if you prepay early? Or do you want to go with First Commonwealth at the 2.45%? And it's always callable. So can you make that decision? Or motion, part of your motion?
Make a motion to go with the BBD,
BB&T,
BBD,
okay.
the,
And then the second part of that is, for 2013, doing a bank loan with Webster Bank at 2.28%. That's for 2013,
2013, bank loan at 2.8%.
from Webster.
2.28.
Webster.
And then in item 3, I think we're recommending, at least I know I am, December 9th as the meeting date.
Motion, for item 3, the December 9th meeting.
You need a second.
So, Dave, for public clarity, can you please repeat the motion?
Sure.
I believe everybody out there has the right to understand what's going
The
on.
resolution to choose method of savings and method of refinancing for continuing pursuit of Southmoreland general obligation bonds refunding series of 2012, hereinafter 2012 GOB, and general obligation bonds refunding series of 2013, hereinafter 2013 GOB, debt refinancing and meeting date for final resolution incurring the new debt. Whereas the Southmoreland School Board has selected PFM Financial Advisors, LLC as its financial advisor, whereas the financial advisor has presented different plans for how to refinance one or both of the above two series of general obligation bonds, and whether to take the savings upfront or over the term of the refinancing. Now therefore, on motion of James Carson, second by, waiting on a second.
I thought it was
There-
Mrs. Smith?
Mrs. Smith, I'm
Mrs.
sorry.
Smith, yeah.
Okay. Be it resolved that the above preambles are incorporated by reference. Item 2, the board authorizes and directs the financial advisors to do the necessary preparation of work for a plan which will: I, select the bond issues to be refinanced among the following. A, refinance and pay off the series of 2012 GOB. That's all of it. And the portions of the 2013 GOB as designated on page 13 of the schedule. And, item 2, the board chooses how to take the savings. C, decrease and smooth out debt service over the remaining lives of the issues and taking into consideration the general obligation bonds refunding Series B of 2014, which are not being refinanced, without extending final maturities. And I'd asked Mr. Williard, the way they've presented this, they've taken into account the 2014 series also in coming up with those final numbers that you're going to be paying each year. Item 3, the school board chooses the method of refinancing. D, utilize bank loan or loans, particularly 2012 issue, the 2012 GOB, utilizing B, B, and T at 2.39%. 2013, utilizing Webster Bank, 2.28%. And item 3, the board chooses the date for passing the official debt resolution. Bond counsel Clifford Pastel is authorized and directed to prepare the necessary advertisements and debt resolution or resolutions consistent with the above for a public meeting on December 9, 2019, beginning at 7 p.m. in the Southmoreland Middle School cafeteria, 200 Scotty Way, Scottsdale, Pennsylvania.
Can you repeat that, Jim? No. Not Jim.
Democracy's one.
Okay. You all done?
Can you write that on mine?
Okay. Ready for roll call?
Public comment.
Oh, okay. Is there any comments from the public? All right, seeing none, we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Fry? Mrs. Alpha? Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-2, absent.
Now you go back to your regular agenda.
Thank you.
Now we
Be
can
safe.
do that and just
Well, there's
take
only
a,
200,000.
yeah, take a loan out for a capital
Comment.
project. Is that
Yeah.
what happened? That's 6.5. Yes,
Any
that doesn't
comment?
the other with interest.
Yeah,
Comment
I'm
card?
disappointed
That's
in
not a lot of
the
money.
savings, right.
Okay.
So you might as well apply it to future debt.
All right,
Okay.
seeing how,
Just to be clear, you picked the smooth out option, correct? Yes. Thank you.
right,
Thank you.
all right. All right, no citizens' comments this evening. We're going to move on to minutes of the October 2019 board meetings.
The board is asked to consider approval of the minutes of the October 10th, 2019 discussion meeting, October 17th, 2019 voting meeting, and the October 22nd, 2019 special meeting.
Any discussion? Have a motion, please? Mr. Carson, second.
Now ask for discussion. Now ask for discussion.
Okay. We have any discussion on this?
I thought you did, I can't.
Okay, we need a second.
Mrs. Smith?
Okay, Mrs. Smith, okay. All right, roll call, or,
Voice
it's a
vote.
voice vote, that's right, voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're going to move on to accounts, fund account check summary.
The board is asked to consider the approval of the October 2019 fund account check summary.
Your motion?
So be it.
Mr. Beistel, second. Mrs. Smith? Any discussion on this? Roll call, please.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith? Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries, 7-2 absent.
Board summary report?
The board is asked to consider the approval of the October 2019 Board General Fund Summary Report.
Have a motion?
Make that motion.
Paul Foskey, second.
Second.
Beistel? Any discussion on this? Roll call, please.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith? Yes. Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries, 7-2 absent.
September 2019 Treasury Report?
The board is asked to approve the September 2019 Treasurer Report.
A motion?
Make the motion.
Paul Kosky, second. Mrs. Smith? Any discussion on this? Roll call, please.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith? Yes. Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries, 7-2 absent.
Okay, we already took care of the method of savings. We're going to move down to board reports. We have student reports, please.
Congratulations to October Scotty Scholar Sarah Fasula. Congratulations also to October Spirit of Southmoreland student Brianna Demagal. The winter Keystone test dates are Literature December 5th to 6th, Biology December 10th to 11th, and Algebra January 7th to 8th. The fall band concert was tonight at 7 p.m. The holiday choral concert is December 10th at 7 p.m. Abby Whitlatch, Madison Garlowich, Sophia Gaddy, and Jaden Jones will be representing the Southmoreland Choir Department on November 21st and 22nd at the WCMEA County Chorus Festival. This event will conclude with a public performance at Kiski High School at 7 p.m. on November 22nd. On October 25th, 2019, 10 Southmoreland High School students on 4 teams attended West Virginia University's 32nd Annual Pumpkin Drop. Preparation for this event began with the 2nd Annual Southmoreland High School Pumpkin Drop held on October 11, 2019. This event gave students the opportunity to test their design at Southmoreland before attending the competition. All designs were unique in construction. The groups that attended the event at WVU have continued the revision process. This was a great opportunity to get students involved in engineering and STEM and a valuable learning experience. Thank you for giving the students the opportunity to participate. 10 members of the Student Council have been invited to attend Wish FM Radio's Light Up Night radio broadcast on December 16th to recognize Southmoreland as a top donor to the local Make-A-Wish Foundation. Student Council successfully implemented a pink out on October 29th and a red out on October 30th to support 2 important causes: breast cancer awareness and the anti-drug, alcohol, and bullying campaign. Students were asked to wear pink and red on the aforementioned dates to demonstrate their support. Student Council is planning to host Bump It Up prior to the winter holiday break in order to raise funds for Make-A-Wish. This is a yearly elimination volleyball tournament competition where students pay $5 for charity to play. The Southmoreland Marching Band won several awards this year. The band placed first at the Norwin contest and won the awards for Outstanding Visual Performance and Outstanding General Effect. The band placed first at the Deer Lakes contest and won the awards for Outstanding Music Performance, Outstanding Visual Performance, and Outstanding General Effect. The band finished the fall season at the PIMBA Championships at Gateway, where they finished second to Fox Chapel by .075 points, and won the award for Outstanding General Effect. 4 teams from Alpha competed in a great debate event at Penn Trafford High School. 2 of the teams took first place. Their topics were antitrust laws in tech companies and government use of cyber warfare. That's everything.
Thank you. Thank you. Superintendent's report?
Yeah, I have a couple things. I would like to thank those school board members that will be leaving us. That would be Mrs. Love, Mr. Alt, Mr. Porter. I really appreciate all the efforts that you've put forth, and I really enjoyed the time that we've had working together. So I thank you on behalf of our school, our children in the district. Thank you very much for your service to the board and to our district.
Thank you, Jim.
I also have some recognitions here. The PSBA has issued certificates of honor roll for 8 years of school board service. One goes to Mrs. Love. One goes to Mr. Leistel. Thank you, Mr. Leistel. And one goes to Mr. Polakowski. Thank you, Mr. Polakowski. I also would like to welcome our new board members, Dr. Fike, Mrs. Smith, and Mrs. Williams. I look forward to working with you for the next several years, so congratulations and welcome aboard. I also would like to recognize the efforts and accomplishments of our fall sports athletes and coaches. We have wrapped up the seasons. We're now getting ready for the winter sports, and I'd like to welcome those athletes and coaches that are going to be participating in our winter sports. And as Amelia has indicated, our band has been stellar in everything they've done, and our students, as you can tell from her report, are being very successful also. So I want to give a sign of appreciation for our students and to our teachers and our staff. So thank you. That is.
All right. Business manager report, information on the budget. Did you already do your thing, Jim, or? All righty. Solicitor information?
This would be to discuss and go over the resolutions which are farther down on the agenda. The first one would be a resolution to advertise to replace vacancy of school board member and establish date of special voting meeting and filing deadline. So in the opening paragraph, we would be filling in the date December 9, 2019 at 7 p.m. The Southmoreland School Board hereby, 1, adopts the following deadlines and procedures as set forth below and sets December 9, 2019 at 7 p.m. as a special voting meeting to vote to fill a vacancy in the office of School Board Director and advertise the same. And then the notice is here, which contains all of the necessary information. Notice of Southmoreland School Board vacancy and special public voting meeting. There is a vacancy in the position of School Board Director, Southmoreland School District, due to the resignation of a member. Citizens of good moral character, being a qualified elector, at least 18 years of age, and a resident of the district for at least 1 year, may seek, but are not guaranteed, to be a nominee and voted upon by the school board by submitting A, written letters of interest, B, a resume, and C, completed, signed statements of financial interest for the preceding calendar 2018 year, required by the Public Official and Employee Ethics Act as a, quote, nominee, close quote, all of which are to be mailed and received by the Superintendent's Office at Southmoreland Middle School, 200 Scotty Way, Scottsdale, PA, 15683, on or before, fill in, 11:30 a.m. on November 27, Wednesday, 2019. The Secretary will then supply copies to all board members, and the board will consider as an agenda item voting on a replacement at a public voting meeting to be held on December 9, 2019, beginning at 7 p.m. Parenthesis explanation, which must be at least 10 days after deadline for receiving financial interest statements and within 30 days of the resignation, close paren, at which time the board will permit interested applicants the opportunity to publicly state their qualifications and or positions for up to 5 minutes. You could allow more time if you wish, each before voting thereon. If a candidate receives a majority vote of the remaining members, he/she will be eligible to serve until the first Monday of December after the May 2021 municipal election, provided that the date is more than 60 days since the vacancy shall have occurred, which it is. Being appointed by the school board does not include being placed on the May 2021 primary ballot for the four-year position, and is a separate political process as required by the Pennsylvania election law and not within the jurisdiction of the Board of School Directors. Item 2, the Secretary is authorized and directed to notify the Boards of Election of the existence of the below vacancy and advertise one time in the Daily Courier and Independent Observer, and continuously on the Scotty Channel and on the Southmoreland website until the deadline for the receipt of the documents is described above. And 3, the Treasurer is authorized and directed to pay for the advertising. So when you get to that point of the agenda, I'm asking you to, recommending that you fill in the dates and times I've just stated. And then the second part would be following the procedure that was utilized in the last 2 appointments, to have an incidental motion to approve the method of voting for the vacancy. And I'm going to skip the whereas clauses and go to, be it resolved that the Secretary will publicly announce the name of each person who has submitted his or her legally proper statement of financial interest or amended statement, resume and letter of interest, and if necessary, the solicitor will rule thereon. After hearing the presentations of the applicants who have timely submitted their legally proper statements of financial interest and letters of interest, resumes and/or qualifications, in the chronological order in which they have been received, the board will proceed as follows. And I presented 2 options. Option 1 is what you've done in the past, to have an election. Simultaneous voting, the presiding officer will open the nominations, and any member may make a nomination. No second required to appoint from the pool of the above qualified applicants a person to be voted on as a group simultaneously, along with any other applicant or applicants who are also nominated by a board member. And when members have stopped making nominations, the presiding officer will ask for a motion and second to close nominations. And if closed, then during the roll call, each member will publicly announce his or her vote for one of those nominees to be appointed. If the nominee does not receive sufficient affirmative votes, in this case a majority of the remaining members, then the presiding officer will again open nominations as above and another roll call vote, and if no one receives sufficient votes, then to continue through the same cycle, unless a candidate publicly announces his or her decision to withdraw his or her name from consideration, and so on for subsequent rounds of nominations and voting, until either a nominee receives a majority of the remaining members' sufficient votes, or a motion is made and seconded and approved to recess for 10 minutes, or a motion is made to table and then resume nominating and voting as above, or a motion is made, seconded, and approved to declare deadlock and cease voting on the appointment. If you were to not fill the position and reach a deadlock, theoretically, you could still re-advertise again for another meeting that month, which would have to be, I think the 19th is a Thursday, be your last Thursday opportunity in December. So if it's not filled, then 10 residents would file a petition with Commonwealth Police Court to invoke the procedures of another advertising for another round of applicants, and the court and bank, all the judges would meet at some later date to appoint someone. Option 2 is not what we've been doing, and that is a shotgun in which whoever makes the first motion or whoever makes the first nomination gets their candidate voted on first. And we haven't been doing that. So that's my report.
WIU report?
I have no report because we had a special meeting last month here. I was unable to attend.
CWCTC report, Jason?
I just have a reminder that, board members and administration and new board members coming in will be receiving invitations to our annual, recognition dinner, second week of December,
When is that?
December 11th.
December 11th, okay. I believe that's out Thursday.
Yes. Or Wednesday. I think
Is it Wednesday? Okay.
that concludes my report.
All right, just have to ask Winston. At the end of my report, I'm going to mention about, so I don't know if you can, I don't know if you get to the mouse.
She is going Monday. Monday, the Jeanette for the second part of, see how they're extending Rachel's clause.
Maybe I'll,
And she's the second
I'll
part of
go
the special part of Rachel's training.
I'll refer to you.
Okay.
All right, PSBA liaison report. On Monday, November 18th, House Bill 1800 by a 13 to 12 vote was passed out of the House Education Committee onto the House floor. It would establish a voucher program for students in the Harrisburg School District, which entered into state receivership in June. Enactment of this House bill sets the stage for an eventual expensive statewide voucher program. With tuition and transportation, it is estimated to cost Harrisburg School District $5.5 to $8.5 million. The voucher amount is based on half of what the school district receives in basic ed funding per ADM, which is the average daily membership, which is attendance. And the state would provide matching tuition grants. It is not clear where the money would come from for the state match. Vouchers could be used at participating non-public schools or school districts. Vouchers would also be available to all students who live in the district. School districts would be forced to pay for students they currently are not responsible for now. There would be no cap on the number of vouchers available, no income limits, and the school districts must provide transportation for voucher students. But there's good news. Even though the debate on the bill began last evening and the bill remained on the floor, it did not get off the floor. It was actually tabled. But it's still on the House calendar. A decision was made by the House not to continue discussion today. The bill could be brought up again as early as December, but its fate is uncertain at this time. So that's something we have to keep an eye on. I thought maybe as part of the next meeting, or maybe one of the two meetings in December, I thought maybe we could, as a board, draft some kind of resolution and send it to our representatives stating that, if we feel that way and we're not for the voucher system, then I think that we should do something like that. We've done that in the past, and I think that would be something maybe we should look at. But I'll keep an eye on this and see what happens.
Mrs. Rhodes, may I?
Sure.
I have a template for a possible suggestion for that. The IU has also penned
Yeah, I
a
saw
letter
that.
to their legislators, so
Mhm.
we could model something similar to what
Similar
they
to that,
have.
yeah,
Yes.
I saw that. I just didn't have time to include that in the report, but I did see that. The next thing on the agenda here is the anti-bullying committee report. This past Monday, there was a Rachel's Challenge chain reaction program held at the Jeanette Junior Senior High School. If you recall, we did bring Rachel's Challenge here to the middle school. It was a great success and was the impetus for Rachel's Closet. The chain reaction is a powerful, high-energy program where both students and adults are guided through a series of experimental learning processes. Some of the goals of the program are to include personal power and self-esteem, shift negative peer pressure to positive peer support, and to eliminate teasing, violence, and other forms of oppression is sometimes viewed to be something that's okay. It's okay to do. So I'll let Mr. Masha continue on.
Yes, and on Monday, we have three staff members, Mrs. Tarasky, Mrs. Prucknick, and Mrs. Myers. Jeanette has very graciously invited those three teachers, staff members, to a follow-up continuation as a next look as to what the program would look like. So we're very pleased to be sending three representatives from our middle school to at least take a look at that.
Very good. School Safety Committee report?
No report at this time.
We'll move on to new business. The next thing would be to accept the resignation of Mr. Charles Fry, School Board Director.
Board is asked to accept with regrets the resignation of Board Member Mr. Charles Fry as the Southmoreland School Board Director effective November 13th, 2019. We would like to thank Mr. Fry for his years of selfless service to Southmoreland School District and hereby declare the seat vacant.
I need a motion.
So be it.
Mr. Beistel, second. Mrs. Smith, any discussion on this? Roll call, please.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes, with regrets.
Motion carries 7-2 absent.
Board vacancy.
The Board is asked to consider the resolution to advertise to replace vacancy of school board member and establish date of special voting meeting and filing deadline. The resolution is attached, and I do believe for Mr. Koenig, you've set the date at,
The board meeting would be December
December
9,
9th.
2019 at 7 p.m., beginning at 7 p.m.
and they have...
And the filing deadline would be 11:30 a.m. on November 27, 2019.
We're not going to read all that again.
No.
We need a motion, please. Mr. Alt, second.
Second.
Polakowski. Any discussion on this? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion now carries 7-1 absent. Mr.
One.
Botonic?
7, 1 absent, 1 vacancy.
1 vacant.
Okay. Method of voting.
Board will be asked to consider a motion to approve method of voting to fill the vacancy of a school board member's resignation. And you would need to pick option
You need to pick option
1 or 2.
I'll make a motion for option 1.
Second on that.
Second.
Mr. Beistel?
Mrs. Smith.
Mr. Smith, okay. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-1 absent, 1 vacant.
Office remaining open for holiday, over the holiday?
Do we need that one?
I don't
We don't
think
need
so.
that one.
No, I don't think so.
Just move on, or do we have to?
It's non-valid.
Nobody
non-valid.
wants to make, I mean, we've already set the 27th, so it's...
We don't
moot.
have, yeah, it's okay, it's a moot point. Okay. Moving on, PCCD, grant letter of support.
Whereas the administration has sought approval of a Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency, PCCD grant pursuant to Act 44 of 2018 for School Safety and Security Part A, Meritorious in School Safety for $35,000 for salary of 1 school police officer to support the elementary, middle school complex, whereas the school district is eligible to apply for an additional grant. Be it resolved that Security Part B competitive, the school board ratifies and approves the acts of the administration in pursuing the initial $35,000 grant pursuant to Act 44 of 2018 and authorizes and directs administration to pursue an additional grant of up to $285,000 to provide the following safety improvements. Number 1, crisis intervention and safety officer salary plus benefits. Number 2, safety and security team. Number 3, elementary interventionist with elementary school and primary center. The Giddings Protective Security Service with threat preparedness. NASRO training for school security team, 46 camera package for upgrading high-traffic areas, including hardware and installation, 56 emergency ladders for egress from second floors, and 7 quick clot bleeding control bags.
A motion, please?
So be it.
Mr. Beistel, second. Mrs. Smith? Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith? Yes. Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
7 yes, 1 absent, 1 vacant.
Title
Motion
I.
carries.
Title I, LEA Parent and Family Engagement Policy.
The board is asked to consider the approval of the Title I Local Education Agency, LEA, Parent and Family Engagement Policy, which is required.
Motion, please. Mrs. Smith, second.
So be it.
Mr. Carson? Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith? Yes. Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries, 7 yes, 1 absent, 1 vacant.
Renewal letter with SPHS.
The board is asked to consider the renewal of the letter of agreement between Southmoreland School District and Southwestern Pennsylvania Human Services Behavioral Health, SPHS, Drug and Alcohol Case Management Substance Abuse Assessment Services.
Make the motion.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Beistel. Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith? Yes. Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries, 7 yes, 1 absent, 1 vacant.
Wrestling overnight trips.
The board is asked to consider approval of the following overnight trips for wrestling matches. The middle school, the Waynesburg Junior High Tournament, Friday, January 31st, 2020. The high school, Sections WPIAL Tournament, Friday, February 14th, 2020. The regionals, which are on Friday, February 21st, 2020. And the states, which are on March 5th, 4th, 5th, and 6th, 2020.
Need a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Smith, second. Mr. Alt? Any discussion? Roll call?
Just,
Oh, go ahead.
I'm real curious, what kind of supervision do we have on these trips? Do we have parents' organizations, or who goes with these?
The coaches, and I do believe there are some booster members that would do it.
Boosters? Okay.
Anyone else? Roll call, please.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries, 7 yes, 1 absent, 1 vacant.
Southmoreland Chamber of Commerce Winter Light Celebration Parade lineup.
The board is asked to consider granting permission for the Scottsdale Chamber of Commerce, bless you,
Flash.
to use the school parking lot and driveway to line up for the Winter Light Celebration Parade on Saturday, December 7th. Lineup would start around 4 p.m.
Need a motion? Mr. Alt, second by Mr. Beistel. Roll call?
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries, 7 yes, 1 absent, 1 vacant.
2019-2020 Joint Purchasing Consortium Representative and Alternate.
The board is asked to consider the approval of Mr. James Marnell, Business Manager, as authorized representative for WIU Joint Purchasing Consortium, and Mr. Charlie Swink, Director of Transportation, as the alternate representative.
Motion, please.
Motion.
Mr. Beistel, second.
Second.
Paul Kosky. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Hey, yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries 7 yes, 1 absent, 1 vacant.
WIU Joint Purchasing Permission to advertise.
The board is asked to consider authorizing permission to advertise through the WIU Joint Purchasing for multi-purpose paper and unleaded gasoline and diesel fuel.
Motion, please.
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Beistel and Mr. Polakowski. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries 7 yes, 1 absent, 1 vacant.
Agreement for services with Campbell Durant PC for SEA contract.
The board is asked to approve an engagement fee agreement for legal services with Campbell Durant PC for upcoming contract negotiations on an as-needed basis.
Any motion, please?
Motion.
Mr. Carson, second, Mr. Alt. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries 7 yes, 1 absent, 1 vacant.
Expulsion 2019-2020, number 101.
The board is asked to adopt the decision of the board sitting as a committee of the whole in executive session, and that the adjudication in the matter of the above identified student disciplinary action be and hereby is ratified in all respects to the same extent and is set forth therein as the action of the Board of School Directors of the Southmoreland School District and the administration is directed to take all actions consistent herewith, and the Secretary to send copies of the adjudication and the resolution to the affected student and parent and/or guardian by certified mail.
Motion?
Make the motion.
Paul Kosky, second. Mrs. Smith. Roll call, please.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries 7 yes, 1 absent, 1 vacant.
We're going to go to personnel. Kevin Bundridge.
Okay, I was notified by Mrs. Gale today that, Ellenberger, our benefits personnel,
Yes.
that the $16,000, $17,000 could fluctuate slightly depending on the level of benefits that we're talking about. So I want to be totally transparent, making sure that everyone was
Okay.
aware of that.
Okay.
I was given that figure, and when I added it, I had to keep it at that point.
Okay.
The board is asked to consider the hiring of Kevin Bundridge in the position of District Intervention Security Person at a salary of $13 per hour plus family benefits of approximately $17,000.
Effective when?
It would be effective, Mr. Slade has tenured his resignation, but we didn't accept it yet, so it would be when we come back in January.
And is this a full-time or a part-time position?
This is a full-time position.
Okay. Anything else? Anything? Okay. Need a motion?
So be it.
Mr. Beistel, second. Mr. Smith. Is there any more discussion?
I'm sorry, is it a 9-month, 10-month, or 12-month?
So 12 months.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith? Yes. Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries. 7, 1 absent, 1 vacancy.
Act 93 salaries for the 2019-2020 school year.
The board is asked to authorize the 2019-2020 cost of living salary increases of 2.5% or $1,900 each for Raquel Sutton and Alex Novikov, and the same 2.5% increase of $2,350 for Tracy Kuhar as per extrapolation from the pay scale for new hires found in the Act 93 contract.
Need a motion? Mrs. Smith, second.
Second.
Mr. Carson. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries. 7, 1 absent, 1 vacancy.
Place sponsor, musical director.
The board is asked to consider the hiring of Sean Conway as the high school play sponsor / musical director at a supplemental pay of $1,290 for the 2019-2020 school year.
Motion?
Motion.
Mr. Beistel, second. Mrs. Smith? Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith? Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries. 7 yes, 1 absent, 1 vacant.
Musical staff.
The board is asked to consider the approval of the following musical staff members for the 2019-2020 musical season. Class play sponsor / producer, Jamie Gore at a salary of $1,290, and class play sponsor / director, Sean Conway, who we just voted on. Paid by High School Music Theater Boosters, rehearsal accompanist Brad Henry at a salary of $1,000, and Kaylee Hansberry as choreographer at a supplemental salary of $1,250, also paid by the High School Music Theater Boosters.
I think that Mr. Mornell's just whispered in my ear a concern about the clarity of that. And this was explained, I believe, that they're not being paid directly by the music boosters, but rather that the music boosters are reimbursing the school district. So I think it would be clearer if it were stated that way, that instead of paid by, it would be school district to be reimbursed by. Because the school district is the actual employer.
Yeah. Okay. As stated by Mr. Petonic.
With consent of the president.
Harvey?
With consent of the presiding officer.
Yes, that's fine. That's fine. Need a motion? Mr. Alt, second. Mr. Beistel? Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
I think you'll be right back.
Motion carries. 6 yes, 1 abstain, 1 absent, 1 vacant.
Yeah, can we wait a minute?
Yeah, we can wait a minute. We can wait till he comes back.
Would like to ask?
Can we ask him, or is it done?
What?
About the musical staff?
It's
Just
done.
move
Okay.
on.
Sophomore class sponsor, senior high school.
The board is asked to consider approving Andrea Hanford as a senior high sophomore class sponsor at a supplemental salary of $853 for the 2019-2020 school year.
Motion?
Motion.
Mr. Beistel, second.
Second.
Second, Mr. Polakowski. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries, 7 yes, 1 absent, 1 vacancy.
Middle school assistant wrestling coach.
The board is asked to consider the approval of Zach Bixler as a middle school assistant wrestling coach at supplemental salary of $2,843 for the 2019-2020 school year.
Motion? Mrs. Smith, second.
Second.
Mr. Polakowski. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith? Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries, 7 yes, 1 absent, 1 vacancy.
Volunteer varsity wrestling coach.
The board is asked to consider the approval of Anthony Wise as volunteer varsity assistant wrestling coach. Clearances are on file.
Motion, please.
Motion. Motion.
Mr. Beistel, second.
Second.
Mr. Polakowski. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries, 7, 1 vacancy, 1 absent.
Potential new school van driver recommended by Quest Coach.
The board is asked to consider the approval of Judith DeQuillard as a new school van driver with Quest Coach, Quest Transit. All clearances are on file.
Motion, please.
Motion.
Mr. Carson, second.
Second.
Mr. Polakowski. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries, 7 yes, 1 absent, 1 vacancy.
Sabbatical for restoration of health.
The board is asked to approve a semester-long sabbatical for restoration of health for Janie Lehman, retroactively beginning on October 31st, 2019, with no break in service.
Motion, please.
Make the motion.
Mr. Polakowski, second.
Second.
Mr. Beistel. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries, 7 yes, 1 absent, 1 vacancy.
Cafeteria day, 2-day substitutes.
The board is asked to consider the approval of Julie Duggar from Mount Pleasant, PA, and Brittany Gigliotti of Tars, PA, as day-to-day substitute cafeteria workers. All clearances are on file and current.
Motion, please.
Motion.
Mr. Beistel, second.
Second.
Mr. Polakowski. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries, 7 yes, 1 absent, 1 vacant.
Citizens' comments. Before we adjourn, I just wanted to publicly also thank Mr. Alt, Mrs. Love, and Mr. Porter for their service to the board and the community. They stepped in and they did a good job. I wish them all the best, and thanks again.
Thank you, Gail.
Have a motion to adjourn, please.
Motion. Be my last.
Mr. Alt, second. Mrs. Smith. All those in favor? Aye. We're adjourned.
Bill, welcome aboard. Nice to go home.
Welcome aboard, I'm out of here.
I mean, filling in for everybody.
Good working with you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Can you sign that, please, for the, WLU?
No,
Yeah, you're right.
no. I'm all out of ink. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're a good man. You're a good man. You're gonna do a good job.
How are you?
Oh, you're, keep quiet.
Thank
Find
you.
out from Vince what the deadline is for the.
Appreciate everything you do.
Yeah.